All right, so our guest today has been acting for nearly 3 decades, appearing in films and series that you know and love. We know many of you 90s kids remember the show California Dreams. A lot of you same 90s kids probably remember a show called Silk Stockings. She's also in Sex and the City, Without a Trace, Law and Order, Search Party, and Friends from College. What do all these things have in common? Lisa Gorlitsky. Lisa also played Sherry in Rounders, which is why she's with us today. Thank you so much for being here, Lisa.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. Thank you.
So, we definitely want to get into Rounders and the other projects you've been a part of. But before we do, just want to take a moment to see how you're doing as an actress, a human being, a parent, a wife, um, somebody, a New York City resident, most importantly, in the midst of this whole COVID-19 pandemic. How are you holding up?
It's, like everybody else, I mean, it's crazy. It's the new normal, I guess. I have pretty severe asthma, so I know what it's like not to breathe. So I have sort of a skosh of PTSD with that. So as a result, I have left the house, I don't know, probably I can count on my hands in the last 6 months. I have left the house that many times. So I went right before things went kind of on lockdown in March. I went for a run. We live in Brooklyn, so I went for a run in Prospect Park, and I just felt like people were getting too close, and to each their own. But I just didn't feel comfortable, so my anxiety level just went, and I was like, nope, I'm staying at home. So I've been at home, and thank God for our backyard, and that's what I do.
Speaking of everything that's going on, especially with COVID, let's talk about Stars in the House. And of course, everyone knows that's available on YouTube. You can check it out at 8 p.m. Monday through Saturdays. And it probably, of course, I can ask you who has been on there. It'd probably be easier to list who hasn't been on that program. It's literally star-studded, and the lineups, and it's generally, from what I've seen, it's for a great cause. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
It's fantastic. Benefits the Actors Fund. It was very strange. We sort of feel like we conjured it because when everything happened and everyone, was getting sick or God forbid wasn't, or I was just checking in with everybody. And I started a text chain with the entire cast and our director and our writer, David Lindsay Abaire. How are you guys doing? Just check in. And they're texting me back, and David Lindsay Abaire, the writer of Funny Mirrors, says, "You're not going to believe this. I just got an email from Stars in the House. They want us to do this." It had been 20 years since we
Wow.
had done this. So we felt like we had conjured this somehow. We had one day of tech rehearsal. The day before we did that, it was supposed to be 2 hours. It lasted 5 because it was so intense. I don't know if you know that play, but it's a lot. There's a lot of action, a lot of movement, and there's a lot of people in it. They were amazing, but we were panicked the night, after that. We're like, how is this going to work? It was so great. I mean, there were crazy things that happened, like Mary Louise, all of a sudden, she had the script. Most of us had, like our iPads or our phones or whatever. She was using the script, and all of a sudden, this is what we saw.
Oh my goodness.
And so we have a little thing on the side where we can read just notes to each other, and the director's going, "Tell Mary Louise to put it." So in character, Patrick Breen says, "Gertie, I can hardly see ya, Gertie," and then she realized, and we see her go, and went on. But you know what? It was just a blast, and we raised a ton of money for the Actors Fund. So win-win, and I got to see all those fabulous faces that I miss.
It must have been nice to be able to perform again. I guess with everything going on, you haven't been able to be on the stage, and the sets are probably closed. And you've actually
Absolutely.
you've spent most of your life on stage, or since an early age you've been on stage. What do you enjoy about the differences between being on stage and being in front of a camera?
I mean, it's quite different. You go to school for acting and you learn sort of how to act for the stage, and you're given all the technique, which is a lot, and you use all of that. That's your toolbox. So it's sort of your training, your basis, right?
Hmm.
And you feed off the audience, and you never know what you're going to get. So every night is completely different. Sometimes a line will just land, and people will laugh and laugh and laugh, and then you have no idea why the next 5 nights it just doesn't at all. So you feed off of that energy, and the butterflies that you get, the anxiety that might come up, you use in the performance. And you have to make strong choices and all of that. You have to carry, your voice has to carry and all of that. When you're on camera, sometimes you can be this close, right? And you have to learn how to bring it down. So you have to learn how to keep all those choices and all the little things that you've made and bring them down. So it's just a skill like anything else. It's practice. Everything's practice.
Yeah, you can usually spot somebody in film that is trained in theater, and or at least the ones that haven't been told dial it back. You're not performing for the back row.
Right.
Right. But listen, put it all out there, and the director has no qualms about saying, "Can you pull it back?" You just have to learn how to do that. You have to be open to being able to do that. It's a skill.
I think we've all seen that it's easier to tell somebody to dial it back than to try to bring it out of them and try to just. And then it's not real anymore. It's not.
100%, absolutely correct.
Yeah, unless you're Jim Carrey, then there's no.
Well, there's no rules for Jim or James. Call him James. Call him James. Damn it.
Speaking of funny people, so you work with Mark McKinney in Funny Mirrors. Of course, many of you probably know him from Kids in the Hall. For the longest time, to me, he was when he'd show up in everything I was watching. He's always in these bit parts that are great. I was like, who? That guy. Finally, I committed his name. But what's it like working with him?
Well, first I have to show you, I pulled this out for you. This is, I don't know if you can see it. This is our original cast picture in the dressing room. And that's all of us. And that's me in my cop uniform there. There's Mark at the top. I'm sitting on Robert's lap. So Mark is amazing. I have to just tell you that it's a very, very unusual cast because we have kept in touch for 20 years. And I mean, we are really close friends. So we see each other many, many times a year, but the people that don't live here, or they're working perhaps in Europe or filming or wherever, sometimes it's difficult to see them. So we have a reunion every single year around the holidays. Sometimes it's right before Christmas. Sometimes it's right after the new year. We work on it every year. Patrick Breen usually puts it together. And so we just have this rich history for all of us. So the last time, almost all of us were there, which was unheard of. Even the writer, David Lindsay-Abaire, our director, David Petrarca, who's usually in Europe, everybody was able to come. Robert came for 10 minutes and then had to take a flight somewhere, but he came. And the next few days, Mark and I got to spend some time together because he was just here in town, and we went to see Hadestown together. And we went to dinner. And the thing about Mark is that he's so smart. He's so quick, right? Like he comes at things from the side, like he's abstract, and he's so quick. And then he has a heart of gold. So he just listens. So he sat there and just listened to all my shit. I listened to his shit. And he has like his heart on his sleeve, which I think is what makes him so relatable. It just struck me, especially this time. I think we had sort of a very intense conversation this time, more than usual. But he's so good at all the things that he does, and including listening and being a friend. So that should say a lot about him.
Yeah, I got that vibe from him whenever I see any character he's playing. They always come with this kind of humble air about them, and it seemed like it wasn't too far from the person that is playing the character. That's cool to know that.
That's right.
Speaking
you
of,
always see his heart.
Yeah. Definitely. You want somebody that's passionate about what they are doing. Before we leave Funny Mirrors, a lot of strong acting performances in that. Definitely, everyone was carrying their own part, but we had to give special credit to you because not only were you carrying your part, apparently you were carrying a human being inside of you. So talk about the experience of, already having to tap into these emotions, but you're like literally life is growing inside of you while you're trying to give life on the screen. Talk to us.
You said it, man. I found out I was pregnant when we were in rehearsals, and I was terrified to tell them because, it was a really big break for me. I had moved from LA. I had done a Sex in the City, and then I was sort of just constantly, casting, and I booked this, and I was so excited to work at MTC. And I came in terrified to tell them, and I sort of broke to them very gently and sort of like almost in tears, and they were like, yay! They were so excited. They were like, well, why not? And, I was in a big cop uniform, so they just kept expanding it. And I have to tell you, that cast was were the first people to feel my son Gabriel kick in my belly. It happened on stage. I came off stage and I was like, you guys, kicking, and all the cast was around my belly, just hands, just trying to feel it kick. I think I can feel it. No, I can feel it. And it was just an amazing experience. We did our run at Manhattan Theater Club, and then we were set to move to the Minetta Lane Theater, and we were trying to figure out how I could do that because I finished my 6th month of pregnancy. And the very last 2 days, I wasn't feeling right. I just was feeling a little like dizzy, and there was a lot of fight choreography in this. I don't know if you're familiar with the play, but there's a lot. And I, in particular, had a lot of fight choreography. I had to have my OBGYN come to approve it. Like, she had to approve the fight choreography. Right. So we were all very careful, and they were all very careful and protective of me. But I wasn't feeling right. And we had our last performance, and I went home. I only lived 3 blocks away from the theater at the time. I was like, I have to go to the hospital. And we went to the emergency room, and sure enough, I needed IV fluids. I was totally dehydrated, and I was dilating. Wow. So I was put on bed rest. So I'm proud of myself. I never missed one show, not even a matinee, but I put on bed rest, and they had to recast the part for Minetta Lane, and that was it for me for that part. But I was really proud to go through the whole thing without missing a performance. So,
bravo,
yeah,
bravo.
Yeah. And that actually wasn't the last time that you had the experience working while pregnant, right? That was without a trace. You were 9 months pregnant during that. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, there's an interesting story with that. So
I promise you we didn't raise your medical records. I promise you we did not raise your medical records.
HIPAA. Okay. So I got this call for the audition for that show. Meg Simon was casting it. She has retired since then. I love Meg. She always thought of me and brought me in. And she did not know I was pregnant. And there was no hiding it because I was 8.5 months pregnant. So I decided, I was like, let me just go surprise her. If anything, it'll just be fun. You know, she'll just, whatever, that's fine. So I went in and she was like, holy shit. She was like, oh my God. And then I saw her mind sort of working. And then she just went, why not? Why can't she be pregnant? Why not? Let's go. Let's do it. So we rolled through it, and she fought for me to get that role because by the time we filmed, I was in my 9th month. And I think they were worried about like insurance reasons. And she pushed it. And it was really fun. And I was thrilled to work that late in my pregnancy. Everything, knock on wood, worked out fine. And I was really grateful to her for doing that for me. It's like girl power.
Awesome.
If we can take a trip down memory lane real quick, and you may know where I'm going with this. The year is 1991. The meadow is smooth, and there's a lot of ambition going around. There's a short film, one of your first real credits that you ever got. Could you tell us about working on the film Ambition and what you remember from it, and just how did it going forward in your career? Is it still lessons you harken back from that being so early in your career?
So this is going to tie into another film, Surviving Desire, which I know we wanted to talk about a little bit later, but I'm going to bring it up now because it's tied. So Hal Hartley did both of these films. And Hal Hartley, I went to SUNY Purchase. I earned my BFA at SUNY Purchase. It's a conservatory. He went to SUNY Purchase, and he graduated before me, so I didn't know him at school. But what he did was he made sure to cast newbies coming out, fresh out of this conservatory that he had gone to, into his short films and his films so that we could get our SAG cards. And so he would actually pay a fine. I mean, the rules are probably different now, but he would pay a fine for us non-union members and give us like 4 or 5 lines to be in his shows, to be in his films, which were very specific, very specific tone, very specific style that he has. But he knew that we could do that because he knew our training. And so that's how that happened. And that's how Surviving Desire happened. And I'm eternally grateful to him. That's how I earned my SAG card, was because of Hal Hartley. And I actually recently got to thank him for it at my friend Parker's book launch, which we can talk about later.
Awesome.
That's
yeah,
great when
wow.
somebody holds the door like that
Correct.
for people coming behind them. That's really nice.
And actually paying that fine, most people don't have the integrity to do something like that. So that's awesome from paying that fine. That is awesome.
That is exactly right.
So let's talk about this. So when you started, of course, from the research we did, you started acting, of course, at the age of 7. You were performing in school plays, musicals, and at the community theater, of course, in Staten Island. Let's go ahead and say that Staten Island represent. By the time you were 11, listen, I'm 37, so I got a 17-year-old and no manager. You had like 2 managers, an agent, a spokesperson, a mom. Like, it was so much going on. Talk about at that, how do you not fall into the trap of what we call, I mean, no pun intended, the Jaleel White, the Urkel effect, to where you get in young and you get typecast. Like, talk about coming out of that and how tell us about how that all came to be and how you got where you're at now.
Okay. Yes, I did start at 7 years old. I did plays in 2nd grade. That's when it started. I played Oliver in Oliver Twist. I played Annie in Annie Get Your Gun. I played Gretel in The Sound of Music and community theater. And the pianist, the accompanist for all of these happened to be the same woman. And she said to my parents, "You have to get her a manager. She's good. She's talented." I was a little teeny thing. I still am. I'm just a little over 5 feet tall. And I had this belting range, which I don't have any longer, but I did. And she's like, "You have to go get a manager and an agent." So she connected us to somebody that she knew, and I sang my little heart out. And it was at a time where being ethnic was different. So it was very much about being blonde hair, blue eyed, and pale skin. And I was this tiny little, I had very curly hair that my mom would blow straight in like a bowl cut. And I had big brown eyes and was olive skin, and my last name was ethnic. They made me change it to Diamond. I was Lisa Diamond. I still get residuals to this day for Lisa Diamond Gorlitsky, which is very weird. It's very weird. But that's how it started. So I started doing a lot of commercials where I would cast as like the bad girl because of my dark hair. I did Wonder Woman roller skates. Woohoo! Wonder Woman, Merciful Minerva. Wonder Woman has wheels too. I did blowing bubbles. I did the first legit audition I went on. It was a number of years in, and I was 11 years old. It was supposed to be for a girl that was sick in the hospital on One Life to Live. And I was very excited to go in for it because I'd only been doing commercials at this point. Very nervous. And I was supposed to be playing like a 7-year-old, and I was 11, but I was so tiny that it didn't matter. So I got special permission to get out of school, and I went in there, and I'm waiting in the waiting room, and I walk into the waiting room full of like Ford Elite models, like child models, like blonde hair, blue eyed with books like this big of their Ford Elite pictures, professional. And I had like my little headshot that was like my school picture. Lisa Diamond. And they were all looking at me, and the mothers were giving my mother like eyes. And the little girls were like super mean to me. And they called me in. And first I had to sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, which I belted out like really loud. And then I had to go into this whole crying scene of being like, she was sick in the hospital. So I just went there. Like I just cried my little eyes out. And I sort of stopped, and she's looking at me, and she said, "Lisa, where did you find the tears?" And I started to cry again. And she was like, "Whoa, what's going on?" And I'm like, "I don't want to tell on anybody." And she's like, "No, you have to tell me what's going on." And I said, "Well, they called me ugly in the in the waiting room." And she was like, "They what?" I'm like, "The girls were really mean to me. They're calling me ugly. I don't have a book and this and that." And they were like, she just leaned forward. She's like, "You never let anybody tell you you're ugly. You're beautiful. You never do that." And I saw something in her eyes just sort of change. And she grabbed my hand and she walked into the waiting room, the casting room. And she was like, "Are you Lisa's mother?" And my mother's like, "Yes," like she was in trouble or something. And she goes, "I would just like to let you know that your daughter did a phenomenal job. You can wait for our call. We're going to be calling her, the manager, to let you know that the dates will be working. And not only is she incredibly talented, what a beautiful young lady."
And this is all in front of the girls.
Yeah, that is.
Now, this could never happen now. This was way back then, right? But
That's still awesome. Badass.
She looked at all the moms and all the girls, turned around, winked at me, walked into the room. And when I got on set, like 2 weeks later, whatever it was, none of those girls were cast.
Boom.
Congratulations.
That's the diamond cutter. We're gonna call that the diamond cutter. She came in there for you representing. Oh my gosh.
She was not having it.
let me ask this, because you're speaking about, and because that's a story where of course you come out and it's all smiles, and of course, like you said, you have a very extensive career. Clearly we've been on your IMDb, we've been on whatever you have, we've been there to try to find out as much as we can about you. But let me ask you this: this is our fourth interview we've done, but one common theme that me and him have seen is that a lot of the actors and actresses they talk about having to understand you're going to get more no's than you will yes. So even from then till now, is that still hold true? And how do you push through those no's?
Yeah, especially going from such an awesome yes in the beginning.
Right, yeah.
It's a really, really good question. You definitely develop a tough skin. It's earned and it's learned. But I will tell you, casting directors, their job is to get the best person for the part. And oftentimes, that has nothing to do with you. Oftentimes. I'm going to give you an example of it, okay? So there was one audition I went on, actually at Manhattan Theater Club. And it was before I got Fighting Years. And they brought me in to audition, to understudy for 3 different roles. And it was a play that Alan Arkin was directing, that Elaine May and her daughter were starring in, and there was one other female role. They wanted me to come in for all 3 roles to understudy, okay? And it was a lot of work. But it really connected with the material. I really connected. And they kept bringing me in, and they kept bringing me in. And they brought me in so many times, they started to have to pay me to come in for auditions. Wow. And it was a role that covered from like 28, which I think I was at the time, to like 65, right? So how do you do that? How do you do that? So you just do the best job that you can do, right? So I went in so many times, didn't get it. About 3 days later, I'm looking at it because it's hanging on my wall right now, but I got a handwritten letter from Alan Arkin, and I memorized it. What he wrote was, "Dear Lisa, what transpired here has to do with budget and expediency, not your ability. I hope you find something worthy of your talent soon. Sincerely, Alan Arkin." And the casting director called me, David Kapp, who is a very, very dear friend of mine, and he said, "Lisa, you got it. You nailed it." He's like, "We just couldn't make the age thing work." And it taught me so much because, you know, there were so many times where you beat yourself up for not getting a role because sometimes you think you nailed it. You just nail it. You can't understand why it doesn't happen. Sometimes it's just not the right vision that the casting director has or the director has or the producer has. And sometimes it's not on you. And what is on you is for you to do the best job that you can, because they will remember you for the next one. Guess what? They brought me in next for Fighting Years, and guess what? I f***ing booked it.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what you learn.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
John Orton, who we had on from Tenet, he expressed the same kind of sentiments that you know you have to understand that a majority of the time it's not personal. You could do great, it's just not what they're looking for. There could be one little detail that's off that you have no control over, and it's not to say anything about your talent as an actor, but yeah, that's
100%. But you definitely have to have a thick skin for sure. It takes time.
I don't like to rely on IMDb too much as the gospel truth, but according to there was like a 5 to 6 year break in film from like 2006 to 2012. Was that a personal choice? And during that time, did you continue the craft in other mediums? Could you tell us about that?
It's a great question. It was really, honestly, my kids were very young, and I refocused a little bit. I wanted to take some time to be with my family. I wanted to give back to my community. And that was my focus, was kind of to do that. And so what I did was I coached kids in their monologues. I coached kids like when they were auditioning for, like, I went to high school of performing arts, which is now LaGuardia. I coached them for that, professional children's school. I tried to focus on giving back. I also practiced a ton of yoga, which was really helpful to me, which is really helpful to my kids, because I would help them sort of be mindful and learn how to deal with sensory overload and anxiety that everybody gets. So my focus sort of changed a little bit. I still went and auditioned, but it just wasn't my top priority. And I was very lucky and grateful that I had agents that understood that my family came first, and then I needed to take a little bit of a pause until they got older, and then I jumped right back in.
It sounds like even when you took that pause, that like you said, you translated your passion from like working into working with others, and from what just hearing you talk, I hear the same enjoyment you got from being in front of the camera to teaching those kids and seeing them be on stage. Is that true?
100% true. And I tell you, I learn far more from my kids than I can teach them ever. That is the truth. That is the truth. I know I have things to teach them, but I learn far more from them. So it's been very rewarding.
One could say that you literally have your feet in multiple roles, and you have to be flexible to juggle your many pursuits. We're talking about your work as a shoe model, a yogini, even teaching yoga to children, like you had mentioned. You seem to stay very busy. How do you keep everything coordinated and keep yourself motivated, more importantly? And going back to that break, I know when, like, in the crafts that you're involved in, they're so time consuming, all of them, and energy consuming. Now I'm sure, like, as an editor, the time that I spend sitting at the computer, my daughter is 5 years old, and oftentimes I wonder, it's a lot of that guilt that comes with being a parent, when your life is kind of divided. So how do you juggle all that and keep yourself going through the process?
I have a lot of energy. I have always. Sometimes life is a lot more juggled than balanced. And that's okay. I like to have a lot of balls in the air, literally. It's just who I am. It's who I've always been. And I try to give my best to every part of it. It's not always possible. I did take teacher training in teaching kids yoga and mindfulness because I found it was helpful to my children. And so I started teaching after school as well as private sessions from ages 5 through the teens. I even have some kids that were on the spectrum. And the course that I took was really for like social workers and people that worked with kids with issues that struggled with sensory overload. I mean, the kids now, even with phones, even with texting and social media, it's like it's overload. So I was giving them tools, literal tools of like, I am so strong. You are so brave. You can do it. And breathing and stuff like not just yoga poses, but mindfulness stuff of like, what do you hear in your own body? And I learned so much from them. So it was very rewarding to have that. I don't mind it. I ran a marathon. I think we're going to get to that later maybe, but I like having my hands in a lot of different places. I have tons of energy. My kids are always like, Mom, stop moving. Like I don't stop.
I love how you manifest those things, especially with the yoga, how you manifest to what's going on and you make them speak that. I was going to ask you, but you've already answered it, but I still was going to pose the question. I was going to ask you how you prepare for your roles in your process, but just listening to you and talking to you, I can tell you're doing your research, you're diving into these characters. So I want to ask you about a different role that you have to prepare for. Clearly, you've been in the industry since a child, and me and him have been doing this for over 20 years as far as film is concerned. But one of the biggest roles we have to prepare for is the fact that you've been married for majority, or been with your husband for majority of your career, over 3 decades. You have the kids. All these things are happening. How does that? Acting isn't your normal job. You're not working 8 to 5, coming home. You could be here for months, here for days. How do you prepare for that role, for being mom, being wife, being superwoman? As you said, you have your hands in all these spots, but you still have to be wife and mom. How do you prepare? And does you feel like it's that you ever can't give it all, or have you been able to divide your time the way you want it? Because you said you refocused, so it sounds like you've refound your purpose.
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky in the sense that, I met my husband at SUNY Purchase. He also, at that time, he was in the BFA program for acting as well, but he's a little bit older than me. So he was a junior when I was a freshman. We never dated. I was dating his apartment mate the entire time. No scandal there. 3 years later, and 1 year after I graduated, I moved to LA, and I randomly re-met him in a restaurant in LA. And we were like, wait, what? You? And that was it. And then he had some real success. He had done a movie called Swoon, which was a really big Tom Kalin independent film that went all over the world, Berlin Film Festival, Montreal Film Festival, and he really had a taste of what this business was. Tried it, moved to LA, really wasn't for him. It just wasn't for him. And he then became a chef, and then he became a lawyer, which is what he does now for the city. But because we have the foundation of having gone to the same school and taking, you know, all the same classes, he knows what this business is like. He knows what I get into every time. He knows how committed I am and how hard it is and how getting a part is like winning the lottery, and he knows what goes into it. So he's very respectful and mindful of that. And listen, you guys are in relationships. Relationships are hard, man. They're work. They're just, nothing's like this. Nothing is.
Right.
Everything is ephemeral. It moves. So there are times when it's been really, really tough, and we've had kid issues, and we've had to deal with them together, and we may not always agree, you know, but we're, in the end, we're a team, and we have 27 years of history.
Right.
That's not nothing, you know? So you work it out. The work is important. The work is good. So that's how we do it. We just do it.
Awesome.
Well, congratulations.
Yes. Yeah. We look up to you.
So yeah, you're juggling a lot of stuff. I know that I do kind of want to jump into the New York City Marathon. You said that was one of the, you know, biggest moments of your life. Being a marathon runner, just in general with your everyday life, what was that experience like to participate in the New York City Marathon?
Okay, it was amazing, I have to tell you. So I've been an asthmatic my whole life, but I've always been very, very active. I was a child gymnast until I was 16 years old. I taught aerobics right out of school. I told you, lots of energy, always energy, but I always managed it with inhalers and stuff like that. And at 39, I had promised myself that by 40, I would run a half marathon. So with a dear friend, my very dear friend, Mary, and we started just walk, run, until we could do the entire circle in Prospect Park, which is 3.36. And then suddenly we would go the other way, and we suddenly found ourselves doing 2 loops. And then we did 3 loops. And I was like, I think we can do this. And so it becomes addicting. It's like another form of meditation, honestly. It's very meditative to run that far. So I did my first half marathon, and I was just hooked. And I did like 7. And I said, you know, why don't I just throw my hat in the ring for the lottery? I'm never going to get in. And I got in. And then I was like, I have to run it. So I started to train. And it was a 4-month training program with Jackrabbit, and it was intense. And then the hurricane happened, and it was canceled. And I drank the biggest glass of wine I've ever drank in my life. And then I retrained the next year, had a really bad injury where because I was shoe modeling for a week for the shoe show in like 6-inch stilettos, and then went out at a crazy pace because I just missed a week of training. I screwed myself up, plantar fasciitis so bad. I had a needle stuck in my foot this big, and I was out for a month. I was determined, and I nursed myself back. I ran that marathon. Guys, I have lived in 4 out of the 5 boroughs of this beautiful city. I have never seen the city like that. Every single neighborhood is different. You go on 4th Avenue, and it's crazy, and people are screaming, and then you go to Williamsburg, and it's can't hear anything. They don't look at you. And you go through every neighborhood. Over the bridge, I started on the Verrazano Bridge. I was crying. I grew up on Staten Island, going over that bridge a million times for auditions since I'm 7 years old, you know, and I'm running over a bridge with helicopters all over me. And, you know, the Queensboro Bridge at miles 15, 16, people are walking, and I'm just like literally saying, I think I can. And I'm saying it out loud, and people start saying it with me. And we go over the bridge. I think I can. We get over the bridge, and then people are screaming for you and holding signs. And I had my name on my chest, Lisa, and people going, oh, Lisa, you could do it. I've never seen the city like that. I was elated. I didn't stop once, not even to pee. I ran it in 4:18. I was so happy. I will never do it again.
Yeah.
You're speaking his
I'm
language.
getting so excited while you, because I'm trying. Listen, I've never done the half marathon or full marathon, but I will say I took up running about 5 years ago, and I try to tell them all the time. It's a such thing called runner's high, and it's free. So I get high for free, and that's what I'm trying to get him to see. You just get out there and go.
I will only run if something is chasing me.
All right, it's going to be cholesterol and diabetes, so I'm trying to
Exactly.
get him on it, man.
Listen, I used to feel the same way, honestly. I really did. And there is something to it. It's very meditative. At first you're like, you feel like it's bricks. Like you can't get through it. And then all of a sudden you like a week later. But it's interesting because as fast as you build the stamina, that's as quick as it goes once you stop. So it's very interesting.
I think that's my problem. I'm not patient enough to build the stamina. The few times I've tried to run, I just like jumped right into it, full sprint, and I end up feeling
Right.
like, oh my God, this is when I die.
They can.
Pace.
You've been an understudy. We had to get an under director for him on our last project because he ran on one scene. We were like, "That's it. We need somebody else up under him. We need forget the AD. We need someone under him directly." But go
Not to
ahead.
mention, I have long limbs, so it doesn't look right when I run. Everything goes
love it.
everywhere. It's just it's bad. But anyway,
I love it.
But yeah, congratulations on
Yes.
completing a marathon.
Definitely congratulations. One other thing I want to congratulate you on. There's somebody that you go back with like years. You guys go way back, and you know who I'm talking about. Peter Posey. You guys.
Parker.
I'm sorry. Why did we researched this 25 times. I knew I was going to do this. I had this right
I
10
knew I
times.
knew you were too. That's why I had it locked and loaded.
Peter Parker Posey, Spider-Man's cousin. All right, whatever. All right, so you and Parker Posey go back
Yes.
really far. So tell us about how you guys meet and the relationship you guys have.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So Parker and I both went to SUNY Purchase together, but it's interesting. We actually had our audition at the same day. She's from Laurel, Mississippi, and she was from Laurel, Mississippi. Like she really was. And we happened to audition on the same day. And she went in right before me. And she was so quirky and she was so energetic. And she ran into the audition room. And then 30 seconds later, she ran out. She was like, "Yeah, where's the bathroom?" I was like, wow, this girl is a character. And we didn't hear, we didn't know. And then found out I got in and showed up the first day. And I was like, wait, oh my God. And so we instantly had this bond and this connection. And we were roommates for many years. And she was missing her family. They were very far away, and my family would come to visit me, if not every weekend, every other weekend, or I would go visit them. I have a very, very close family, and I have two younger sisters who I'm very, very close with, and my parents are very close. So I would bring her with me, and so they were like her parents, and she had never had bagels, creepies, and lox. Like they introduced her to all of these things, and I had a really big birthday party last year, and she came and she hadn't seen them in years, and she just was holding on to them so tight and thanking them, and she was like, "Bagels and lox." So we have a long history. I just spoke with her last week. She's back on the set for the third season of Lost in Space in Vancouver, and she's doing really well, knock wood, thank God, healthy and happy and all that.
Awesome.
Loved her in Parks and Recreation.
Yes.
Her character that popped up in there was
Yes.
fantastic. So in 1993, you played Michelle in California Dreams, probably making so many girls jealous when Sky leans on you for the guitar solo, and then Matt points you out at the end of their song. I'm curious because I grew up on shows like that, Saved by the Bell, California Dreams. They're like my skip day shows. I always wondered, what a set like that is like with just teenagers, so many teenagers. Right. Well, adult.
They weren't really.
Yeah,
Right.
Yes. Hollywood teenagers.
There you go.
Hollywood teenagers. No, I have to tell you, it was a really unusual group because a lot of times when it's that kind of show, it's very cliquey. And so people that come in to do guest stars like that, it feels a little odd. You feel a little like you're intruding, kind of. They were so welcoming. They were all so lovely. I can't tell you, as tight as they were super open to everybody. So it was just like, it's funny because you had mentioned this to me, and it came up recently because they have like a fan page now and they've tagged me in a bunch of their stuff. So I was like, oh my God, California Dreams. And I played an undercover cop. I was like 23, playing an undercover cop who had a thing with one of the teenagers. And I'm like, that's a little creepy. Like, thinking back, a little creepy. And the other thing I remember is that at the end, I had to like kind of make an arrest, but they wouldn't give me a prop gun. So I had to be like, I had to make a choice, like in the moment. So I was like, you stop right there, like with my finger. So now, like, my husband sometimes would be like, you stop right there. What was I gonna do? I had to make an arrest. I had no gun. So,
I have got to find that clip now.
Now, I was going to say this now. Now, California Dream, like you say, you're looking at something that, like you say, it takes you back to making you feel all sunny and bubbly and things of that nature. But then there's a career shift, or I say a scene change, if you will. You go to Silk Stockings and you're playing Susan Wolf, and I said, it's very different. Like you say, it's almost night and day. Could you tell us what it's like from the experience, the drafts, the dynamic from going from California Dreams to that, and also speak on the fact that you played. There was someone that you that played in that you know of. We just call him Ferris's father. You were working with Lyman Ward, and that is in one of the episodes. So you can talk to us about that.
yes. Okay. So I was living in LA at the time, and this was shot in San Diego. Silk Stockings, if you remember, was quite a sexy show.
Yes.
And my part was a very interesting part. It was Lyman played my lover, basically, and I was best friends with his daughter. We went to school together, and I basically killed his wife. Okay, it comes out that I killed his wife. It's very, very intense.
There you go.
And it was a really juicy part. I couldn't wait to play it. And we had to do a little negotiating because what they wanted me to wear, I was not comfortable with. I have no problem with scantily clad. I'm scantily clad all the time. I don't want to be nude. That's just not me. It's not no judgment on anybody else. Just not me.
Right.
So I thought we had that pretty well down, and I was wrong. So when I got to set, it was basically pasties, and I had a fit. I called my agent and said in tears and said, I don't know how to handle this. They're like, let me handle it. And they kind of shut down set for like a day for them to negotiate this. And it was very uncomfortable for me, extremely uncomfortable for me. And we sort of like went halfway with what I felt comfortable with and what they felt comfortable with. But it was a real lesson for me to learn how to advocate for myself and also to make sure that going forward, things were super crystal clear of what I was comfortable with and not. So it was a really wonderful lesson for me. And to answer the second part of your question, he was so wonderful to me. He was so protective of me because he knew I was uncomfortable and he knew the situation. And so when we had really sexy sort of love scenes and stuff like that, he was so protective of me. I can't tell you. And just watched out. I leaned over and he was like, listen, I can see a lot. I was like, thank you for telling me, like he could not be more of a gentleman.
Oh, that's awesome. It's refreshing to hear one of those stories and not the other way around. That is very refreshing to hear. That is awesome.
Yeah.
That's very awesome.
Yeah, no, I have terrible memories about Silk Stockings. It would always be when I'm at my grandmother's house, and it just comes on after a show, and now I'm sitting in the room with
your grandmother.
And this is back. You don't have remote controls. You had to get up and change the channel on the television.
Grams. Mima.
I love it.
Let's move on to 1998. You played Sherry in Rounders opposite Matt Damon, Edward Norton. We understand this was a relatively closed set, so we aren't at liberty to go into too many details, but what can you tell us about your experience on that production?
It was pretty amazing. It was at the height of Matt Damon's sort of success.
How do you like them apples? Yeah.
He was exploding, So I didn't know what it was going to be like. John Dahl works in a really interesting way. He likes to rehearse, which is unusual. You just sort of usually go to the set. There's not really a rehearsal time. You go to hair and makeup, and then you come in there, and you may run it once. They put you on your spots, your markers, and that's pretty much it. He wanted to rehearse first, and so before they even sent us to hair and makeup, they called us all to set. It was a closed set. It was freezing. It was a dead winter, freezing. And I was wearing, you know what that part was, right? So I came in sweats, baseball cap, no makeup, and I'm 5 feet tall, right? And I'm very tiny. And I'm standing next to John Dahl, and I see him look down at me, and I see him look back, and then he's like, did I cast a cheerleader? He was like, what? I was like, no, I skank up really good. I'm telling you, I skank. So he right away, he was just so relaxed and so calming. And one of my favorite things about that set was there was this one moment where they had like a technical difficulty. And it was a little complicated. So we had a little downtime that was unexpected. It ended up being a 16-hour day. It was really crazy. But this particular moment, I saw him sitting sort of by himself in his director's chair. And I was like, I'm going to go over there. So I went over. I was like, hey, John. And he sort of looked at me like pleasantly surprised. He's like, yeah. I said, I have a question for you. He goes, shoot. I said, why did you cast me in this role? And he just sort of cocked his head to the side. He goes, good question. He goes, strong choices. Never forget that. Strong choices. And since then, I have asked almost every director I have ever worked with, why did you cast me? And it is some iteration of those words.
That's such a good thing for actors to do. I'd never even considered that. That's such a because you can get so much valuable information from the other side of a successful audition.
It's a working relationship, and I agree with you 100%. Let me ask you this here. A lot of times, and again, not just with rounders, something you may have been in before, and as actors and actresses know, you can come out and like you said, you can nail it, you can kill it, everything's going good. You're like, I can't wait to get to the movies. Oh, it's just going to be great. And then all of a sudden, you find out some of, as they call it, the cutting room floor. What is that like to see that, put in that work, and then find out it's not there, but still be happy for your other coworkers? And then how do you deal with that? And can you speak to any of your scenes that maybe were cut without breaking any type of G14 classified rule?
Right. That happens a lot. It really happens a lot. It did happen on Rounders. I had some scenes with Michael Rispoli, who played Grandma. I love Michael. He is such a dear. I can't tell you what a sweetheart he is. And I had a lot of scenes with him that were cut for time. And when we were shooting them, I was like, oh, these are kind of superfluous. It's kind of saying the same thing, or like Matt Damon's character would come back without Ed Norton's character, and then we were sort of in there and having a lot of conversation. But I was thinking in the back of my mind, well, I don't know how this really fits in, So I was surprised that they were left out, but then I wasn't surprised afterwards, So it happens more times than I can tell you.
All right, so now these are your words, not mine, so don't sue me here. She says she can skank it up. Now, I did hear that, correct? Now, so I have to ask, were you one take Tasha? The one take Tasha is when you nail it the first time. How many times did you guys have to do you want to twirl? Like, how many times did you, the twirl, see, how many times did you have to go through that?
Well, okay, so because it was such a long day, and we did quite a few scenes in that day, and it was probably the 15th hour. It was really crazy. And they did, first did point of view from Matt Damon and Ed Norton, and so they did their parts, and then they turned back to do my point of view. And I have to say to you that Matt Damon could not have been more amazing. I mean, a lot of times when you're that big of a star, when they turn around, they have like stand-ins for you. They don't stay. He made sure to stay because he wanted to give me his emotion and feedback from what I was doing. So it wasn't a ton of takes. It was also absolutely freezing, and I was pretty much naked. So he was so protective of me. I can't tell you, like, every time I would be shivering like this, just shivering. My fingers were blue, my lips were turning blue, and in between every take he'd be like, get her a sweater, get her a robe, somebody get her hand warmers, bring her some tea. He was so worried about me. It was the sweetest thing. So it wasn't tons of takes. It was probably like an hour for that particular scene, but it hurt because it was really cold and I was really
pulled it off.
And shout out to the makeup artist. I mean, I'm waiting on her to show up. I don't know who you are, but that is not the same person. So shout out to the makeup artist. Goodness grief.
I can't help but notice that there's two gentlemen in the scene that shares the scene with you. You bring up that Matt Damon was excellent. Sometimes there's implications in the things that you don't say. So Edward Norton, And I want to preface this with saying I love Edward Norton since
Primal
Primal
Fear.
Fear. You know,
Yes.
I Lost Time to American History X and
Yes.
everything beyond. I mean, he is a
Yes.
fantastic actor in everything he's in, but it is fairly well known that he isn't the easiest to get along with on set. In Birdman, with his character, they even blurred that line of reality a little bit, and which makes me think that even he knows this and kind of has a sense of humor about it. But what is it? What was it the experience like working with Edward Norton?
I would say he is a true talent. He is one of our finest actors. And I will also say that he is a challenge. That is probably all I will say. And who knows why? You know, people are people. We all have our issues, right? He was very professional. I will say that. But he's a challenge. I will say that.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, that's good enough
thank you
there.
for
Thank
speaking
you.
on that. Yeah. And I don't want this to be a judgment on Edward Norton in any way. Still go watch his movies.
I mean, he has like 7 posters of Ed in his home. He still calls him Ed, so don't worry about it. I did want to ask about one thing. Of course, the director John Dahl has worked on so many projects that I've seen that I love myself personally. You're talking about many episodes of Justified, Californication, the Americans. We talked about Dexter, Homeland, Shameless. I mean, you name it. Now, I mean, Breaking Bad and True Blood. Goodness graciousness, man. Oh, Sookie Stackhouse.
He has his hands in so much television. Like, so
Yeah.
much of my life has been spent watching him without realizing it.
Yes. Oh, yes. So, could you tell us what it was like working with him on the process and things like that?
I mean, it's pretty much what I was saying before. He was extremely accessible. He knows exactly what he wants. He's also a director that sometimes you can be on set and a director gets so in your head, like it's almost as if they don't know how to speak to an actor because it's your heart is on your sleeve, and if you're told like you're doing it wrong, a lot of times you can sometimes feel really bad and get in your head about it and just have a really bad day. And he has a way of communicating with an actor that makes you feel good about yourself. So even if he wants you to do it a different way, like you don't take it personally, you don't feel judged, you don't feel like you're doing a bad job, you feel like he trusts you to be able to do it and take the note. And so you trust yourself. So it's a gift. It's a true gift. Not everybody has that.
Like I say, it's rare. Just like you said with Edward Norton, one thing working with him was a challenge, but it's night and day from what I'm hearing with him. Like, because most people expect when you're working with directors for it to be a challenge, but you're saying he's the exception, not the norm, and for a good reason.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with, you know, many people like that. I'm not saying everybody's like that, but you know, when somebody is, I mean, I've seen it happen to actors on set where I think to myself, oh, I feel so bad for them because I know what's going on. Like they're feeling like they're just stinking it up, and the director's not communicating in a way that makes them feel confident to do their job. You know, they're communicating in a way that makes them feel really self-conscious and bad. So he's just one of those that's like very uplifting. That's what I took away from him. And his great gift of, you know, giving me the note of like strong choices and stuff. Like it was very memorable for me.
So Rounders is drenched in talent, like extremely talented actors between John Turturro, John Malkovich, and then you got Matt Damon, Edward Norton at their prime, or actually like fresh off their prime from movies like Primal Fear and Good Will Hunting. But there's so many people. Meet Martin Landau. I mean, I can go on. There's so many people in this movie. What was your fondest memory working on the production?
I really just have to say how kind people were, how it was at the pinnacle of Matt Damon's career and John Dahl being who he was, that it was such an open feeling set and that you really felt like you were in good hands and taken care of. And it doesn't always happen, especially with that amount and caliber of talent that you just mentioned. Sometimes, it can be a little bit like I had mentioned before, like you're sort of infringing on that, or you're not, you're at a different level than they are. There was none of that feeling. There was no hierarchy feeling or like you weren't worthy or something like that. Everyone was on equal ground. So that's what I walked away with from that. That's my favorite memory of it.
Awesome. Now in 2001, great year by the way, love 2001. You started an episode of Third Watch called After Time. Now, of course, this episode takes place shortly after of we all, of course, 9/11 when that happened, following what happened with the New Yorker, the responders. Being a New York resident, like you say, Staten Island, you've mentioned that several times, running the race and everything. What was that production like? Being shot so close to where pretty much the proximity where everything happened. Was it an eerie feel on set? Did you guys take it as a responsibility to get your performance across because of where you were at?
I would say I could sum that up in one word, which is raw. Everybody's feelings were here. So it was a very emotional scene that I had, and it was just so easy to access that because it was just here. So everybody wanted to do their absolute best and just be true to what had happened because we were all grieving. We were all still so seeped in it. Yeah. And to just piggyback off of that, I mean, my own experience with it, we live in Brooklyn. And that day, it's something, of course, none of us will ever forget, but I have this picture that I just recently came across of my son, who was 1 at the time, and he was standing in front of the television, and there was the picture of the towers on fire, and he was just standing there holding a bagel, and the juxtaposition, the yin yang of this innocence with this horror behind him and having no clue. I just remember trying not to cry in front of him and just shaking. And we had these some work being done in the front of the house. We had some brick problems, and they didn't really speak English, and I wanted to tell them what was happening, and I came outside to try to tell them in like pidgin English what was happening, and I'm watching them, and I see the ash in their eyelashes, and all the ash and papers went over the Hudson into Brooklyn. Our backyard looked like snow, and I found people's life insurance policies, like papers had just blown. I found like letters, and I would call these people to tell them that I had these things and mailed them back to these people. And it was horrifying. And the snow lasted for days, and the smell lasted for days. And so to be on that kind of set, and for them, that was a trilogy episode. They really honored 9/11. They really honored what we all went through, and they nailed it. They really did. So the emotion was very easy to access, I think, for everybody.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Definitely. Now, you recently starred in the pilot episode for the Enemy Within, should I say? You starred in that episode. Now, and of course, this was directed by Mark Pellington. What was it like working with Mark?
So, Mark Pellington has cast me in 2 pilots, and he has killed me in both. I keep telling him I do birth and not just death, but this is what keeps happening. Mark Pellington is, I don't know if you know his work. I mean, he's so famous for so many things, but Jeremy Pearl Jam was, his wow. Yeah. He's an artist. He's a true artist. I don't use the word lightly genius. I mean, he's so visual. He's so visual. So it's like a master class with him. And he's a bear of a guy. I mean, he's like 6'4" or taller, and he's big. He's like a quarterback, and I'm this tiny little person. So to see us together is quite funny. And I think he's very protective of me in that way, because I'm so small, and I've had to be shot in the chest and shot in the head. We had the last one. It was so crazy. Like, I can't even tell you. I was in a car, and motorcycles had to come, whizzing by. And they blow out glass. So I have like something in my ear to protect my ear, and then a walkie-talkie, which I can barely hear. And then blood has to squirt, and then I have to scream, and then I have to be shot and die and crash the car. And, oh my God. But he was amazing to work with. And I can't say in what capacity, but I will say that we are continuing to work together.
This year, you starred in HBO Max's Search Party as a co-host on a talk show. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh my gosh, it was the most fun set I think I've ever worked on. They talk about trusting your actors. There's some sets where there's like a script supervisor that if you say an instead of an, they freak. They're like, you said isn't and not is not. You're like, oh my God, okay, it's that one, kind of set. This set was so the opposite. I mean, obviously they don't want you to stray too far from the language, but they just gave you freedom to explore, and they were so supportive. I didn't want to leave set, but I literally didn't want to leave set. And I had done something else, which I won't mention before that. And the set was so different. It was so completely different and so discombobulated and unprofessional, and they were so fun and lax, and we were just like, go, like, more, do it again, try something else, and it was so much fun. It was like a improv, so I had a blast on that set. I hope I get to work with them again.
You've had some really fun sets. One of the other things we saw is that you worked on an episode of Law and Order Svu, and you had a scene, of course, with Ice-T.
The scene had me dying.
He loved this. He's like, dude, you got to watch this before we do the interview. I'm like, okay. Of course, the character's name was, I believe, it's Krista Gross, and
Yes.
essentially, Ice-T gives you this look, and if looks could kill, it's just kind of like, hey, look, hey. You know what I'm saying? Like, what was that like?
We all know what he was
Yeah,
saying.
we all know what he was thinking, and we just don't want to say it. Yeah. So what was that like?
With Ice-T, you get, like, you see what you get what you see. He is exactly that person. And first we bonded because they put us in hair and makeup together. So we bonded, and he had, at that time, his daughter was, I think, maybe like 2. I don't know, really young, really young. And he was like, he right away started calling me G. That was his name, G. And I'm like, he's like, I'm worried, I'm so protective of my daughter. What do you do with your daughter? And I'm like, well, from the minute she came out, my husband has been telling her, boys stink. And he's like, oh, I'm totally doing that, G, I'm doing that. So we bonded. So when we got on set, we already had this rapport, right? And so I had gone to this whole ayahuasca journey where I'm walking with Mother Earth, and I'm the owl, and it's actually me. And I go into the whole thing of it, and every take, he's like, I'm happy for you.
Oh my goodness.
And then as soon as they would yell cut, he'd be like, damn, G, you make me want to do ayahuasca!
That's just awesome.
Every take, he would do that. I'm crying. I'm laughing so hard.
Oh, goodness.
Ice-T
so
never
funny.
lets down,
Never.
never disappoints. Okay. Thank you for. So recently you starred in Friends from College, and I always get them mixed up. But so it's Michael Keegan Michael Key. Yeah,
There you go.
I always get him and Peel mixed
Peter
up.
Poker Park Smokes. Jeff, there you go.
And of course Kobe Smulders. What was it like sharing the screen with them? And did Keegan Michael Key, did he improv quite a bit?
Oh my God. It was a masterclass in improvisation, a masterclass. So much so that the scene that I actually auditioned for, I was supposed to be like a wine tour guide, right? So I had this whole tour which he was on, and he was incredibly drunk, and I had a very thick Long Island accent, so I was like, this would go very nice with a piece of chicken. This grape would go really nice with a piece of steak, and I'm like, we're walking, and he is coming up with these lines where I had to like pinch myself so I would not just die crap. The extras behind us kept laughing. They kept having to stop it. They were like, stop laughing. And he got so far removed from the script that I was like, how are they going to tie this back in? Like, I don't know how they're going to do it. And sure enough, they didn't. They left the scene out. So I was really pissed because they won't give it to me either. It's Netflix, so they won't give it to me. It's proprietary. I can never get the scene. And it was so much fun. And the scene that they ended up leaving, I was already wrapped. I was back into my clothes, and they ran back in. They're like, wait, they need you for one more thing. I had to quickly put my clothes back on and then go back in there. And that was like a one-off, like just threw that in. And that's the one that made it in.
Wow.
That's to say the least. All right, so that was unique, to say the least, very unique. One of the many productions that you've been a part of.
Vegan.
I knew you were going to go for that. One of the many productions you've been a part of, both on screen and on the stage. You've been a part of so many, but if you could just take between doing film and stage, if you could take one memory, what would be one of your most fondest memories from out of the many productions you've been a part of?
Interesting question. And I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings because I had so much fun on a lot of them. But you know what? Actually, I think I'm going to mention one that we haven't talked about. I did, in 1995, I did a movie of the week, a moment of truth called Deceived by Trust. And it was with Michael Gross from Family Ties. And it was based on a true story about a principal, a high school principal that was abusing some of the high school girls. And I was one of those girls. It was shot in Vancouver, and I had to live there for a month. This is going to be a little side note, but it ties in. I am terrified of flying. It doesn't stop me from getting on the plane, but I will be having some wine whilst on the plane to get me through it. Like if there's 1 ounce of turbulence, I'm the one that has an absolute heart attack. So I have a ritual that I do, and I cannot tell you how many people I have met because of this ritual who are now my friends that were complete strangers to me. I happened to board the flight, and when they fly you there through SAG rules, they have to fly you first class, which I don't usually get to do. I don't have that luxury. And sure enough, who should be sitting next to me but Kate Jackson from Charlie's Angels? And I was like, how am I going to ask her to do this? And I did, and she held my hand, and my ritual is that when the nose just starts to come up, but like the wheels are still on the ground, when the nose comes up, I have to sing, here we go, into the wild blue yonder, here we go, up and away. And I sing it and sing it and sing it and sing it until the plane is like this, until I calm down. She sang it the whole time with me. So that started the whole thing, and I was like, I'm in heaven. I'm done now. Okay, that's good. So then getting on set, we had to live there for a month, and I was really lonely. You know, I was like missing my family. I was missing my husband. I was missing everything. And Michael Gross and his wife, who stayed there with him, they took me out like almost every single night for dinner. They had me to their hotel apartment. We watched movies together. They were like my surrogate family. And everybody's like that. Like even I'm still to this day super close with like the hairstylist, Julie McCaffey, who's won Emmys at this point, you know, and like, it was such, like, I was very young and I felt very, you know, lonely and scared and like, and the whole cast and the whole crew, the director, all of them were like, it was like my family, my extended family for a month. So I think that might have been my favorite thing, to be honest with you.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
That is awesome. Yeah, that's yes.
All right, so I know that this is the last question we have, but before we get to that, I just want to say thank you again so much for being here. I saw your birthday speech on YouTube. I had no doubt that this was going to be a fantastic interview after watching that.
Thank you.
So I know a lot of your projects are still in hush-hush territory where we can't talk about them, but can you tell us where people can find you so they could follow your work?
I have to tell you that this pandemic has kind of been prolific for me. I've been writing a ton for myself and for others. And some of it is in development, so I can't talk about it. But one of the things is a half an hour episodic. I've written 10 of them loosely based on my life and all the things that we just talked about of how many things that I juggle, and that you can still follow your dreams and be a middle-aged woman, you know, and I'm hoping that will resonate with people, because really you should follow your dreams at any time. And that's where you can find me. I have one little parting thing that I wanted to say earlier and I forgot to say it. To other people that are aspiring and to kids that are just starting out, something that really, really helped me, and once you can get back into the rooms of the casting rooms, when eventually that'll happen. When I first got out of college, I volunteered to be a reader in audition rooms. And I cannot tell you how invaluable that was. When you're in one of these BFA programs, it's not really something you get to do. What you get to do is you're in a room and you see 500 people come in for the same role. And what it teaches you is, why does that person stand out? Why do they not? And I can't tell you how invaluable it was for me to learn that. And I actually did pass that on to SUNY Purchase and said, you guys really should start a program and offer like a summer program or apprentice or something like that. I'm sure they'd love it. So I want to say that. Other than that, you can find me on Instagram, Lisa Gorlitsky, on Facebook. And then I'm hoping one of these projects that I can't really talk about will be happening really soon, and you will find me there.
Well, Lisa, I wanted to personally say thank you. This has been a dream come true of mine, because when we decided to do this show, this is one of my film picks, and I was like, man, if we can just get anybody, I don't care who we get. But I mean, when I found out that it was you, I was like, the twirl girl. He didn't even have to tell me. I said, twirl girl, twirl girl, twirl girl. So you're twirl girl, but now that I've actually got to meet the woman, you're much more pleasurable. You're much more like, this has been like one of the best interviews I think we're going to have this season. So Lisa, thank you for not finding it robbery to give us some of your time, expertise, and words of encouragement for the future generation of artists out there.
Yeah, you have so much knowledge and with all of your experience in the field, so thank you very much for sharing some of that with us.
Oh, thank you guys so much. Now, this was really wonderful, and it gave me a break from politics. So thank you.
There you go. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. No.
We're not talking about that.
Not at all.
So, Lisa, we look forward to you and more of your work, and hopefully, like I say, we'll be doing good, and we'll do good by you, and thank you so much for everything.
All the best.
Thank you very much. So nice to virtually meet you.
All right, there you go.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
But what I always walk away from is this feeling that I like giving speeches about other people. So tonight, this speech is all about all of you. No, it is. Because it's exactly what Danny said. This is exactly what I wanted for my 50th birthday. I wanted everybody that I love and I like and I respect and admire in one room and a hallway and another room. And when I look around at this room, I feel like the luckiest person in the world. I'm a foul-mouthed 50-year-old woman. I don't care about it. This is Kristen! So my life has a lot of different facets, and I'm going to start naming them. It's going to take a while. Sit in your chairs, relax. First, Danny. Danny and I have been celebrating birthdays for 27 years. Yeah, that's a lot. We started at 23. He baked me a cake. It was blue. It was disgusting. But he really tried, and I really appreciated it. Danny, it was disgusting. Danny, you are my rock. You are my hero. He hates when I say that, but it's true. Thank you for this beautiful life. I love you. Thank you for our children. Our children? Our children who have taught me far more than I could ever hope to teach them, and who I learn from every single day, and who have the most beautiful souls, and I'm so grateful. And then to my parents, who have supported me through every crazy life choice. Literally everything, all the lessons I wanted, my piano and my tap and my jazz and my gymnastics and my singing and my drama, and they took me to my auditions. I dragged my mom kicking and screaming since I'm 7 years old, from Staten Island to Manhattan for every audition. She hated it. I'm so sorry. Mom. For me driving cross country, not once, not twice, but 3 times to LA to pursue my dream. When I moved in with Danny after only 2 months of dating him, that worked out okay. When I cheated on my 7th grade science exam by writing the answers on my hand and then raising my hand to ask a question. And the fact that you only punished me and didn't laugh in my face is a testament to your love. Thank you. I love you. To my sisters who are truly my first little loves. They really are. And I am in awe and admiration of them. They are as beautiful as they are smart, and their heart are so pure, and I would do anything for them, and I treasure you both. I would choose you as friends. If you were not my sisters, I won the sister lottery, people. They're amazing. I love you. And my 3 brother-in-laws, David, and Andrew, we've been through some shit. We've been through some together. And you know that I have your back, and your back, and your back, and I know that you have mine, and I love you. And my in-laws, my two mother-in-laws. I have two mother-in-laws that I actually like. Aren't they cute? They're cute. Mama B, your love, you are amazing. What you give to all of us, all four of us, it is unbelievable. And the way you pursue your dreams is an utter inspiration to me. And it's something that we can all learn from. It's such a beautiful thing. And Joyce, the only thing bigger than your heart is your generosity and absolutely everything that you give, and certainly the love that you show all of us. I love you. And my father-in-law, Uncle Billy, that's what the kids call him, Uncle Billy. You have the most beautiful, gentle, kind soul, and I am so glad you are my family. And now, my cousins, who are ironically all from Danny's side, so I won the cousin lottery because they are my extended family. There are so many of you here tonight. Carmela and Larissa and Rob and Alan and Alex and Danny and Rachel and Jillian and Meyer and Benny and Rachel. They are responsible for the favors you will be going home with tonight from the party. Michael and Lilka, the two best Zumba instructors in the world are here. Miho, my favorite yoga instructor, is here. Thank you for helping me keep it tight. Salon Bohemia, Wendy, thank you for helping me keep my roots tight. Lillian LaSalle, high school, college, PS 107, PTA, Park Slope, you even rep me at one point. We seem to follow each other wherever we go. I love our history, and I love you. That brings me to high school. We have a lot of facets, I warned you guys. Hold tight, hold tight. High school, Carla and Yasu, where are you? Carla and Yasu were the only two from Performing Arts High School who made it to the outer borough, forgotten borough of Staten Island for my Sweet 16 from their other borough. And guess what? They're the only two here at my 50th. I don't hold a grudge. Now on to college. SUNY Purchase. Where's my SUNY Purchase peeps? People from my acting company, I have people from Danny's acting company, hi Dana, but I have made two of my very best friends at SUNY Purchase. Jilly. We have known each other since we were 17 years old. You are not just one of my best friends in the world, you are my sister. You are a daughter to my parents. You are a sister to my sisters. You are an Aunt Beansy to my children. Thank you for all the memories that you've helped us create. Thank you for all the memories you helped us capture with your beautiful photography. I love you and I treasure you. And my other college roommate, Parker Posey. She's Parker People Institute and up in the house. We used to sing that at every freaking college major. Everyone. But we just grew us in the heart because it was the 90s. I love it. Woo! And now my acting community. My Fighting Years castmates from 20 years ago. Literally this week was our 20-year anniversary. They were the first people that felt Gabriel kick in my belly, and they were more excited than me when it happened. It happened on stage. We ran off stage. I told them, and they all went around my belly. All of the castmates were around my belly. They were so excited. It's very rare for a cast to keep in touch for 20 years. We see each other many times a year. It's a very special thing. I love you guys. And then, Christian Parker. And Dave Cap. And my agents, oh my God, I sound like I'm in the Oscar speech. I'm so sorry. I'm going for Alex and Chad and Dave Cap. You believe in this tiny little, big-haired, big Jewish girl who's now 50, and I really appreciate it. And now my shoe modeling world, I know, it's a lot. I've been with the Me Too company for 12 years. It's like 100 in modeling years. It's like dog years. It doesn't happen. Stephen flew here from Florida. Where are you, Stephen? Lucy and Georgia and Jay. Oh, I love working with you. I learned so much from you. Thank you for letting me be part of your family. My Colhan family is here. Maria and Katie. You guys create something from nothing. You draw something and then it's on our feet. It's insane. I have no gift for that. So I'm in awe of it. Thank you for making me be part of your world. You guys, I have my OBGYN here. Dr. Michelle, where are you? She delivered our children. She's been working on the dance floor. She's taken us through infertility to menopause. She has seen more of me than anyone else in the world. Think about it. My GP is here. Dr. Marilyn Jackson is here. I promise not to drink too much this evening. My eye doctor is here because reading glasses. Dr. Wu is probably dressed head to toe in Burberry because he's fabulous. It occurs to me that next year I can invite proctologists because vintage! My friend Tim Dunn is here. Tim's on his way from California to be here tonight. Faith Ackerman is here. Faith Ackerman picked me up in the elevator at Tiffany's. We were both returning lockets that our husbands had given us after the birth of our children. She turned to me and said, "How old is yours?" And I said, 2 months. "How old is yours?" And she said, 2 months. They were 2 days apart. They're now 19. We're still friends. Faith! 2 more, and then I'm done. 2 more. Sometimes you meet somebody later in life and you feel like you've known them your whole life. So this is such a person. So our children introduced us. She could not be here tonight because her father is ill, unfortunately. We wish him well. But she's the kind of person I need to shout out. I told her I would for several reasons. She's the kind of person that, to thank me for my support, sent my grandmother's purses because she knew how much that would mean to me. She's the kind of person that lent me this dress. Now, I know she wore it better, but it's kind of cute. And I feel like an S&M Cinderella. It's the beautiful Iman. I'm sorry she couldn't be here. Yeah, she deserves props. And then last but not least, I promise, Livio Angelari. Livio Angelari did my hair and makeup tonight. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, by the way, touch-ups after. But besides his talent, which is enormous, his heart is gold. Livio travels the world, and he comes back from his adventures, and he tells me about them, and I see the world through his eyes. And he's opened up my eyes to the world. He's opened up my mind to things that I never thought was possible. You make me see things in a different way. He's so beautiful that, like my dad said, he comes with me every couple of months to visit my grandma Helen, who's 100 years old, and he cuts her hair because he wants to pamper her. You are so beautiful. Thank you for everything you've given to me, certainly tonight, but always, I love you, amore. So now, I'm almost done, I promise. I know this was long. I just, thank you. I need 20 seconds of you to indulge me because I need to take this in. Because sometimes we forget to do that, and I need to be more mindful of doing that in my life. So it's going to be 20 seconds of silence from you guys. To me, life is certainly precious and a commodity, but time is our greatest commodity, and nobody knows how much of it we have. And I can honestly look around this room and think of time well spent with each and every one of you. And I thank you for sharing your time in this life with me. I'm so grateful. So 20 seconds. Silence can be awkward. Just go with it. So grateful. Let's eat some cake.
Here we go, into the wild blue yonder. Here we go, up and away.
Find us in all these links that's coming up right now.